And after that, here Carlsen brings his rook to d1. He might be preparing for queen to f5 so that he can create some pressure over this knight, and this f5 square will be a better outpost for this queen. But after that, here black develops his another knight to c6. But wait, isn't black blunders? I mean, this rook can capture this knight on d5. But guys, if this happens, now black will go for knight to b4, attacking this queen as well as this rook. And by this you can see white has to lose this rook. So that's why after knight to c6, he continues with queen to f5, targeting this knight. Okay, so now here Carlsen develops his another knight on c3, preparing for knight to d5, and the move like bishop takes c3 is not going to work because after takes, you can see the c pawn is now covering the d4 and b4 squares, where black can't place his knight, and the e5 square is already covered by this knight and this rook. And let's suppose if black goes for rook to e8, trying to exchange this rook, and note one thing that you cannot exchange the rooks, because by this you can see black successfully neutralized white attack, and now he can start pushing these pawns. So instead of capturing, so after rook to e8, it's better for white to go for bishop to f4, developing this dark square bishop as well as connecting both rooks. And obviously black can't exchange because then white will maintain the pressure. So that's why, let's suppose if black goes for f6, preparing for move g5, but now comes bishop to h3, attacking this knight. And you can see there are no squares left for this knight, so black is forced to go to so black is forced to go to the knight to c8 to guard this. But if black goes for suppose rook to d8, now comes rook at a goes to d1. And now take a close look at this position. You can see white successfully taken control over the board, targeting all the important key squares like this e5 square where this knight can't enter. And next, white is going to bring this bishop to e3, whereas black pieces are in a very tensed position. And if black decides to attack this dark square bishop by pushing g5, now in this position, white can actually sacrifice his knight by knight takes g5. This is because after takes, simply bishop takes g5. And now you can see white is targeting this rook, and after this rook moves, which is guarding this knight, you can see white can easily capture this knight on d7, and you can see this position is completely winning for white. Okay, so in the actual game, after the move knight to c3, so that's why here black goes for knight to b4, which first of all threatens to play knight to c2, and secondly this move also covers the d5 square. with the bishop, and the best way to defend this is rook to d1, but instead here Carlsen goes for a weird move, bishop to g5. But why? I mean, now black can go for knight to c2, which he actually does in the game, attacking both rooks. But guys, you might be shocked that in this position, Carlsen goes for a move which most of you can't will not understand. He goes for the move rook to e7. And yes, one thing is clear that this rook is now targeting this knight. But what will happen if black captured this rook? Let's see. If bishop takes e7, now comes bishop takes e7 check, and obviously this king can't go to e8 square because then it would get trapped. So that's why black is forced to move this king to g8. But now comes rook to c1, attacking this knight. And let's suppose if knight to b4, now white can go for a3, attacking this knight again. And now some of you might be thinking why this position is equal. Yes, I mean white has an advanced pawn, but black has also these two rooks, right? But guys, let's take a closer look. This rook on h8 can't go anywhere. I mean, the rook is almost gets useless because of this king, and if black tries to activate it, but first of all this knight is under attack, so he has to move his knight. Let's suppose he goes on c6, targeting this bishop, but simply knight to b5. Okay, if knight takes e7, d takes e7. If rook to e8, trying to stop this pawn, but simply rook to e1. And you can see in the next move white will go for knight to d6, and this position is completely over for black. Okay, so let's go back to our original game. After the move rook to e7, after seeing this all stuff, here black didn't go for bishop takes e7. He decides to capture this on f3. And now you can see white is preparing to push f5. So that's why to stop this, here black goes for king to e6. Okay, so now it's better for black to bring this king further so that he can support these pawns, but instead he goes for bishop to a3, which invites Carlsen to play. And guys, now comes the most interesting part of this game. In this position, here black made a mistake by playing king to e7. But why this is losing? This is because of king to c6. And now you can see black can't move either of these pawns or this bishop, because pushing any of them would make this position even worse for black. So that's why black is now forced to move his king, and yes, this is zugzwang. Here black goes for king to f6, and after that immediately Carlsen brings his bishop to d3. But why? This is because after king to f7, so that he can go for h5, and you can see now black is forced to capture this pawn, and after takes, simply bishop takes f5. Okay, so let me go back to this move. Yeah, let me go back to this move, king to e7. So the correct move is not king to e7, the correct move is king to g7. And now I think most of you will get the idea. Let's suppose if white goes for bishop to d3 with the same idea of pushing this pawn to h5, but now black can go for simply king to h6, and now you can see white can't push h5 due to this due to this king takes h5, and by this you can see this position is completely equal. Okay, so let's go back to our game. After bishop takes h5, here black brings his king to f6. and in this position Yannick resigned. This is because clearly you can see in the next move white will definitely go for a bishop to e8, and let's suppose if black goes for king to g6, simply bishop to e8 check, king to h6, and finally bishop to f7. And now you can see black is forced to move this king because there is not any good move left for black. So let's suppose if king to g7, simply bishop takes h5. And now tell me, who is going to stop these pawns? This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.